as we are now 7 days away from opening night, that's right, 7 days from when puck drops, games actually matter, and we get to look at the next 82 games of our Hurricane season. And the man joining me today is Walt Ruff, as we talk about that and so much more on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is, every weekly podcast talking about your Hurricanes, and also all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. But let's be honest, you're not here to listen to me talk. You listen to me 5 days a week, prattle on about the Hurricanes, all the updates and all that stuff. No, you're here for my special guest. He's the Canes editorial content producer and team reporter and host of the Storm Report. I am super excited to have Walt Ruff back on the show once again. Walt, how are you doing? And thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Of course, Zach. Thank you very much for the kind intro, and thank you for having me on. It's a fun time of year, and looking forward to discussing everything that we will together here today.
Yes, we definitely will. So we're going to be talking about, the stuff that Walt's kind of knows throughout the preseason. We're going to talk about some roster cuts because we're now down to 26 after a massive exodus of guys going towards Chicago. And then we're going to be doing some look aheads and rapid fire questions. But before we jump into all of that stuff today on this episode, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, Walt, we are now officially 5 preseason games through, 1 left. We're so much closer to the start of the regular season. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to stop talking about speculations and who's making rosters and what lines are going to look like and just talk about actual games. But for you, how has it been, the last, couple weeks going through this whirlwind of like 2-a-day practices, 5 preseason games, back-to-backs, and all of that stuff over the last few days?
Yeah, it's certainly a busy time. It's fun. It's tiring, but it's it's good to do things that you love because it makes it all worth it, right? And I know that a lot of people, just like you and I, are looking forward to the games really mattering. And like you mentioned, we are that much closer. So excited for next Thursday here at Lenovo Center. I know we've got a week until then, and a lot could happen. A lot is going to happen, but we are much closer than we were 2 weeks ago, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yes, no, definitely. It's crazy to think that it was just that couple weeks ago. We're like, all right, we got started first day of on-ice stuff at camp. You're figuring out who's going to be 2C, who's going to be on the wing, what are defensive pairings looking like, and then it's like you see it that some guys have been a lot more runway on some positions. We still haven't seen a lot of guys in practices or early preseason games, and for you, I know it seems like the Rod Brind'Amour and the staff aren't really too concerned. And for you, why do you think it's not much of a concern in the fact we haven't seen a Jacob Slavin or a Jalen Chatfield kind of being part of practices in preseason games and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that has been a huge part of the team's training camp, right? No one could have predicted on day one that we weren't going to see Jacob Slavin. We saw Jalen Chatfield disappear for a week. We had a couple of guys in no contact jerseys. So it has been a huge storyline. But why I think the coaching staff isn't concerned is because thankfully, and knock on wood, these injuries don't seem very severe. It's just precautionary that these guys are going to work their way toward October 9th in comparison to playing in a meaningless game on September 28th or 29th or whatever the preseason dates were. They want to make sure they're good to go for games 1 through 82 and beyond, and just not risking anything this time of year.
Yeah, and I've been saying that too. It's like if they feel like they're going to be okay for opening night, then you kind of have to be like, okay, it is what it is. That's what the team is saying. And you said it perfectly too, and I even talked to Mike Maniscalco about it. It's like, why would you want to rush Jacob Slavin and Jalen Chatfield back? They're going to be good. Like, you don't have to worry about them learning a system. It's basically just trying to get them healthy and be ready to go for night one. But someone that I do wonder about, that I think we haven't really heard very much of, and I know people are kind of like, okay, what's going on with this situation? Keandre Miller.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where it's, you got a new guy coming in, has to learn the system. You just gave him, a good, decent sized contract, but not much has been said about him. Like for you, is there anything going on that maybe fans should know about, or is it just like, what's the situation going on with Miller that we're just kind of like, where are we at this point coming as we get closer to opening night?
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point there, Zach, and that's really what it boils down to. If Keandre Miller were in his third or fourth year with the team, like a guy like Jalen Chatfield, where he didn't need to be on the ice to learn the systems, we probably wouldn't be seeing him either. But it's good that we have seen a lot of Keandre Miller. Yes, most of it was in a yellow non-contact jersey. On Monday and Tuesday of this week, he skated in a regular jersey, which is certainly encouraging. The team was just taking a slow ball approach. He had off-season upper body surgery for an injury that he suffered with the Rangers at the end of last year. And it was trying to find that happy medium of having him on the ice, learning what goes on, and still protecting his health at the same time. You're right. We haven't seen him in a preseason game yet. I don't have a ton of concern there. Maybe we'll see him Saturday afternoon in Nashville. Rod Brind'Amour has said that he would like for that to be the case, but also if you again elect to play it cautiously and he doesn't skate until next Thursday, he's a multi-season NHL veteran. He'll be able to adapt on the fly. So I don't have a ton of concern there. I think they're just playing the cautious approach because, like you said, it's a very long investment for the organization, and they want to make sure that they don't lose a significant chunk of time for, again, training camp practices or a preseason game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree 100%. It's like if we saw with what happened to a bunch of teams last year. Colorado lost. I think they led in man games, lost, and then with the Hurricanes, unfortunately we lose Jesper Foss in the last game of the regular season in a meaningless whatever 2 seasons ago, and now he's an advisor for the Hurricanes. It was just so great to see that he's with the new organization still. But yeah, it's injuries happen. Like we see a lot of guys recently, like Barkov's out for the whole season now. He got hurt in a practice. Like
you hate that. You don't want to be that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's understandable where you're coming from the Hurricanes, where it's like, hey, we got to make sure all of our guys are ready to go because at this point, you've made the playoffs 7 times. That you kind of feel like, okay, that's just another part of the step for the Hurricanes. Next is going in, winning conference final games, and then go make the Stanley Cup and win the whole thing. So I see where the Hurricanes are kind of like, we don't want to kind of rush guys that we don't need to, but. Another thing that's been very noticeable, and I think there's been a lot of discourse, I know you've probably heard about it so much, is what's going to happen with the second line center position. And I know, coming into it, you kind of felt like maybe just Barry Kotkaniemi was getting another run at it. There was questions that were brought up. Well, it will be Seth Jarvis or Logan Stankoven. Stankoven has played a good majority of the 2C spot within the main group of camp and through a lot of the preseason games. How have you felt watching him play the center role where he's done it before, but maybe just not as much as you would think for someone who's going to be maybe taking on a different role than what he has been early on in his career as a winger?
Yeah, I think Logan's done a great job. Rod Brind'Amour has sang his praises thus far, and you're absolutely right. It was a huge question mark, probably the biggest question mark entering training camp. We've seen Logan in 2 games, I believe, in the preseason here, and we've seen him obviously in every single practice working between Andrei Svechnikov and Jackson Blake. And Rod Brind'Amour remains non-committal on how long that's going to last, which isn't all that surprising. But to me, it feels like it's his job to lose. We haven't really seen the line shuffle all that much. It's not as if we're seeing Jesperi Kotkaniemi between Jackson Blake and Andrei Svechnikov one day, and then they're going back the next day. They've clearly given Logan this runway. And again, maybe we'll see another crack on Saturday in Nashville with what should be a more NHL-heavy lineup. But I think if the game started for real tomorrow, I think Logan would be in that spot, and I think he's earned the right to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the question mark that we've always been talking about is, the Hurricanes have said it. They're looking for a right shot center. Well, there's possible right shot center. I just didn't, I don't think a lot of people thought, it could have been Logan Stankoven, maybe it could have been someone else. But hey, it's never a bad thing to go internal when you have a bunch of wingers that maybe you have a chance to go play center. And speaking of that, now if, you move Stankoven over, you kind of move Jackson Blake, you've got Hall, you've got, all these guys, there's the question mark of, with your extras, William Carrier, Mark Jankowski, I guess, when you look at possible 13th, 14th forwards, because we're down to 26 guys, and we'll talk about more about that in segment 2, but what does it kind of give the Hurricanes in terms of, I guess, flexibility to have so many guys that you could potentially throw in there if you need to for maybe strategies at some point during the season?
Well, I think what it says to me, Zach, is that they should feel good about their depth. If we are going off of what we've seen at training camp practices thus far, and yes, I know that a bulk of them for him were in a yellow non-contact jersey. If you have a guy, and I'm not saying that this is how it's going to work out, again, we've got a week to go, but if your healthy extra up front winds up being Mark Jankowski, you probably feel pretty good about that, because that's a guy who co-led the team in scoring in the final 19 games of the regular season last year. He came aboard in a trade for a 5th-round pick. You kind of thought you were just getting a guy who would play a little bit further down in your lineup, and it turns out he can score goals. So if that's the guy who's, knocking on the door, not waiting for someone to get hurt, but if he's waiting in the wings for an injury to arise, you got to feel pretty good about that, especially given the fact that, yes, his natural position is center, so that gives you 5 options down the middle. He can also play the wing, too, if needed. So I think the fact that the Canes are going into this season with that depth, and then you still have your call-up guys of, Jost and Juha Jaska, and I know situationally Bradley Nadeau. Like, there's more coming. You should feel good about the roster that you do have going into the season.
No, 100%. It's like you think about the times during the Hurricanes when they were making the playoffs and they were just throwing everyone and anyone they were getting into the main lineup. Now you can have this logjam of depth where it's like, hey, guys have to fight a little bit harder for spots, and maybe sometimes it just doesn't work out. Like for a guy like Bradley Nadeau, who did great, and like I said, we'll talk about him in a little bit. You can feel good about just letting him kind of just do his thing in the AHL at 20 years old. And it's crazy to think that he was pushing that hard, but still has that opportunity as well. Of course, and then you got Ryan Suzuki that's down there. You got Dominic Fensore, all these defensemen too. So it's good. This is probably the deepest team the Hurricanes have had, into where it's like there's maybe one spot, possibly 2 on the roster, and that's depth. We're not even talking about starting. It's just can you make the roster? I think that's where we're at right now with the Hurricanes, which is not a bad thing to have.
No, it's certainly not. You have to have a deep team in order to win games in April, May, and June. We've already brought up the Sasha Barkov injury, but look at how many injuries come up. We've seen it firsthand the last couple of years during the postseason. You have to have these guys who are ready to step in at a moment's notice. And I think coming into this year, if you asked Eric Tolsky and Rod Brind'Amour, do you feel you have a guy who could step up into an important role? I think they would tell you yes.
Yep, no, 100%. And speaking of which, we've kind of alluded to it a little bit, so we're going to dive into it more with all these new recent roster cuts, because there's been a lot over the last couple of days. So stick around and we'll talk about that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your team wins. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you're going a little something riding on the action. Maybe you're watching the Panthers, maybe you're watching Mayfield and the Buccaneers, maybe you're watching the Chargers, whoever. It adds a little bit more excitement to games you're already watching, and maybe a little bit more excitement for your fantasy team. So whether if you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you really waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to a segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So, Walt, I know you've probably been busy having to keep up with all the stuff that's going on. I know, just trying to make sure we're like, all right, who's going where? What's going on with this, with waivers and non-waivers? The Hurricanes have been very busy this week with going from 40 players down to 26, especially on Tuesday. 13 guys in some capacity are going to the Chicago Wolves. For you, what was kind of like maybe the biggest surprise out of the guys that were probably getting sent down to the Wolves at this point?
Yeah, I don't know that there were any crazy surprises to me. Rod Brind'Amour had a great soundbite during, I think it was either Saturday or Sunday, his media availability. He said, you could kind of predict our roster coming into the year. So it's not as if there were a ton of spots up for grabs, right? I know we've still got some great storylines left in camp, like Givani Smith is ruffling some feathers, which is great to see. I think, and hopefully I'm not stepping on a future question of yours here, but the big one that a lot of people wanted to talk about was Bradley Nadeau, right? How was he going to make an impact in camp. And I think he did. And Rod Brind'Amour really liked what he saw, and he sung his praises in a major way on Tuesday when he talked about him. He just said, listen, he alludes to the fact that it's better to have him playing 20 minutes a night and playing in important situations in Chicago than have him on the third or fourth line here, potentially playing 6, 8, 10 minutes a night. We all know Bradley Nadeau can score goals right now. He scored 32 as a 19-year-old in the American League.
Yeah.
Some of that is maybe catching some teams by surprise. Yeah, I know he was a first-round pick a couple years ago, but we're going to have to see a different Bradley Nadeau in the American League this year. And what I mean by that is nobody's going to let him out against their third or fourth line anymore if you're on home ice. You're getting the tough assignments. You know how we always talk about like Jordan Staal getting the tough assignments of, Alexander Barkov and Connor McDavid coming in. I think what opposing coaches in the American Hockey League now know that Bradley Nadeau is going to be on the ice, they're going to get their defensive guys out there against them. And if we don't see 32 goals from Bradley Nadeau this year, that's okay. We know we can score at the AHL level. Yes, in a bit of a modified roster setting, we know he can score at the NHL level. He's never going to lose that ability. Now it's just about rounding out the defensive part of his game and potentially putting him in some other areas. I know we had talked about at Prospect Showcase, he was killing penalties. Like, you're trying to continuously grow this young man. He's only 20 years old. You don't need him to be in your NHL lineup on an every night basis right now. You need to keep him developing into being the best player that he can be. So that way, whether it be midway through this year, opening night next year, 2 years from now, when you need him to be in your lineup, he's the best version of Bradley Nadeau. So I think it's totally fine that he's probably going to start the year in the American Hockey League. Do I think we're going to see him again this year? Probably at some point. Whether that's at the end of the year or a necessitated call-up, I think we're going to see him, and I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's the thing that's crazy, too. When we talk about segment one, it's like you don't have to rush these guys. We don't have to have the dark days of, all right, every prospect we draft, automatically throw them in, and then it's like, hopefully your development doesn't turn sideways, and you don't really need to do that right now. I think, and you said it perfectly, and Rod Brind'Amour said, and I even mentioned on the Wednesday show, it's like, why play him 8, 9, 10 minutes a night? Go let him, go to Chicago, play 17, 18, see what he can do down there. And I think, it's what can you do off? You can score, but what's your off-ice tendencies? Can you get into the spot where you need to be? Do you know how to read the play? Is your IQ on the next level? How is your offensive and defensive awareness? Are you paying attention to where certain guys are at? Stuff like that, back checking. Like you said, penalty kill. There's a lot to still go on. He's 20. We don't have to have a Seth Jarvis or a Jackson Blake every season just breaking the roster. Hey, it's just one of those things where we have enough guys. Go develop. Go do your thing. We'll need you when we need you, and that's not a bad thing to have. And you talk about Givani Smith, and I kind of want to bring him up, and also Alexis Legault, because the fact that with the PTO guys, I didn't think usually PTO guys for the Hurricanes, you don't really see them make a lot of moving and shaking very much. But Givani Smith has definitely done that for the Carolina Hurricanes. Couple fights, scored a goal. And, he's, like you said, ruffled some feathers. What have you seen from him that's maybe been like, I don't know, maybe this could be him playing into a contract possibly with the Hurricanes at some point?
Well, what I'll draw back to is after his second preseason game, I asked Rod Brind'Amour post-game, because you never really know, we see, obviously we're drawn to, like you referenced, the fight, the goal, but much like you were just talking about with Bradley Nadeau, how's the rest of his game? What is the coaching staff seeing? And I asked Rod Brind'Amour, I said, do you like what you've seen from him so far? And he said something along the lines of, there's not a whole lot not to like. So I think he's become a big fan of Givani Smith. He's clearly gotten a lot of opportunity. We know that this is a team that doesn't have a lot of bite, a lot of snarl to it. And if you go out there and drop the gloves in back-to-back preseason games, you've got some bite. You've got some snarl. So these situations are always so fascinating to me, because we know that Givani Smith is trying to earn a job, but we also don't know what other opportunities he has, right? Is he going to consider a two-way contract, or does he have something in his back pocket to go overseas for a healthy amount of money?
Yeah.
Money talks at the end of the day, right? So nobody could blame him if he'd rather go overseas and get his money in comparison to starting the year in the American Hockey League again. We just don't know. But what I do know is that for the here and now, it's been really fun watching Givani Smith a part of this team.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. Like you said, it very draws it out too, because you see him go play with Colorado, San Jose, all these different teams playing in the American League as well. And like you said, there's not a lot of bite and snarl. We're not talking about Brendan Lemieux bite and snarl, but this is a completely different one. But yeah, it's been very interesting to see what he does. And I even said, when they were first making the announcements, I'm like, maybe who really knows? Because you kind of feel like the roster was somewhat set. Now you see Tyson Jost get reassigned to Chicago. Of course, him and a bunch of other guys have to go through waivers. We'll know when this comes out. Everyone will know if they cleared or not, because we are kind of recording this before the 2 p.m. deadline for all the waiver stuff has to go through and stuff like that. But we don't know that Skylar Brindamore made it through. Brendan Seeley made it through. Thank goodness, because I like both those guys. They do an amazing job in their own rights. But mentioning Ronan Seeley and talking about the defense, Charles Alexis Legault, I've been liking his game since the Prospect Showcase preseason. I know Matt Soma and Nick from Canes Prospects have been all over this dude this last year and this offseason. And he's still here as the possible 8th defenseman and maybe could be making some noise as well. What is about Charles Alexis Legault that he has kind of stepped his game up to the next level compared to what he did last year, which was a pretty good season? But what about him has been maybe there is something here coming into this season, or maybe into the last preseason game?
Yeah, that's a great point there, because you're right. It's his development. It's his year-over-year growth that has him in the position that he's in now. When he was drafted by the Canes a couple years ago in the 5th round, he was a little bit of a raw talent. Played in the BCHL. I know Rod got a great look at him when he was at Quinnipiac with Skyler. But he was always just kind of this big defenseman. And then his skating gets better. And then you find out he's a stud defensively. So he is undoubtedly this year's hype train of the training camp. And that's okay. I am fully endorsing it. I love the way that he moves. I think his gap control defensively is spectacular. Last preseason, we saw him fight here at Lenovo Center against a very tough customer in McCarran from the Nashville Predators. So he just kind of has a lot going for him. Now, the area that he might not have a ton of flexibility is the offensive side of his game, but that's okay. We still got room for Jacob Slavin, and we don't ask him to put up 20 goals a year, right? A little bit similar skill set wise there. Obviously, still a lot of growing for Charles left to do, but we were speaking earlier about call-ups. When you look at a defensive core that has 4 left-handed shots and 2 right-handed shots when everybody's healthy, and then if Mike Riley's going to be your number 7, he's another lefty, you're saying, who's our next right-handed option? It's Charles Alexis Legault. It's pretty clear. Dominic Badinka needs time in Chicago. Joel Nystrom needs time in Chicago. Alexi Himasalmi needs more time in Chicago. Charles Alexis Legault is the closest to being NHL ready, and I'm so happy for him. He's a tremendous young man. I can't wait to watch his game grow even more than it already has over the last 365 days.
No, I'm totally on board with you on that. Yeah, it's just being in locker room, you can kind of see, how he interacts with everyone, the way he does on the ice. And he is a big boy too, 6'4", 215. It's 215 doesn't sound big, but when you are that tall and you got some heft on you and you can throw hits really well, 215 can look like a number, but if you know how to use it correctly, it could feel more like 225, 235 than anything else. But and you said it perfectly, and I had said it on Wednesday's show and all this, the last few days. He will fit perfectly well into this team if they need a right shot defenseman onto this roster, because the Hurricanes love to have that nice balance of 3 left, 3 right. If Miller isn't ready to go, or if something happens and you need to have that balance, Charles Legault would be the perfect guy to bring up to be your balance guy. Like you said, it's never a bad thing to have a Jacob Slavin 1.0 and a possible Jacob Slavin 2.0 down the future. And I'm talking more of the defensive side of the game. I don't know if he's it's hard to be Jacob Slavin in terms of what he can do, but that defensive mindset of what he can do, I think Legault could be that Slavin 2.0 guy of we're not going to need you for the offense, but we're going to need you for your defense. And I think that's what he could potentially bring to the Hurricanes. One last guy I do want to bring up before we go into segment 3 and start looking ahead and the rapid fire. Cayden Primeau has been absolutely electric for the Hurricanes in that. The Hurricanes go and trade a 2027 6th round. It's a 26 7th rounder, which is okay, we'll give you the last round next year. Go get this guy. Wins 20 games last year in the AHL with the Laval Rocket. Has some experience with the Canadians, of course. That's depends on what kind of Canadians team you got in front of him. But he's had some huge saves in the preseason so far. I mean, we're talking grand larceny, highway robbery saves, like, hello, 911. I want to report a stolen shot on this guy. Like, for you, what has made you be like, okay, the Hurricanes made the right move of getting this guy into the organization as a goalie?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought him up too, because it's a great point. He's got 2 preseason starts so far. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen Saturday in Nashville, but you're absolutely right. Rod Brind'Amour's called him solid. He was 18-20 in both games. And to me, one of the other questions coming into training camp was, who's really going to be your number 3 in net? We know in a perfect world it would be 41 games for Freddie Anderson, 41 games for Pyotr Kochetkov. It's probably not going to happen. We see both of those guys battle with injuries in their own right. Okay, who's your first call-up option? Now, they brought in Cayden Primeau, like you said, got him for not a whole lot, if we're being honest. And then they signed Amir Miftakov coming over from the KHL, and you didn't really know what you were going to have there. He was tremendous in the KHL last year. He was in North America a couple seasons ago. He's gotten older. He's gotten wiser. What was his game going to look like? It wasn't a very good training camp in preseason for Amir Miftakov. It became very clear very early that Cayden Primeau has locked himself into this number 3 role. Now, obviously, we all hope that it's Frederik Andersen and Pyotr Kochetkov come next Thursday. But if it's not, I think that Cayden Primeau's earned himself a higher standing in some fans' mind than he had 2-3 weeks ago. Like you said, he's proven to be one of the best goalies in the AHL level. Yes, he's played in front of some not-so-great NHL teams in the past, but then I also start to think about some of the other goaltenders that have played for the Hurricanes in the last couple of years that didn't really have success elsewhere, didn't have a ton of success after they left. Like, I'm not trying to throw these guys under the bus by any means, but like this team's made it work with Antti Ranta and Alex Lyon, and I know he was earning Rookie of the Year votes at one time, but Alex Nedeljkovic hasn't played to the level that he was with the Hurricanes. So if you can get this guy, I don't want to demean him in any way by calling him a project goalie, but there might be something there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with Cayden Primeau, because if you don't need him, you got a feeling he's going to do pretty well in the American League. He's got a proven track record there. Yeah. And if he does have to come up, let's see what he's got. It's exciting to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's exciting. Hey, if you want a third goalie, he can do it. That's not a bad thing to happen. And Cam Abbott and those guys in Chicago are like foaming at the mouth to get this guy in there in the pipes if he's there. And I know one last guy we have to talk about him a whole lot, but someone who really has shown out, Ruslan Kasayev. He has surprised a lot of people. I'm like, okay, he didn't really have the greatest numbers in the American last year, played only one game for Bloomington in the ECHL, wasn't the greatest game for him either. And you're kind of like, okay, what's he going to do? And he kind of showed out a little bit as well. I was really surprised by him. Like, we might have found our 4th goalie too, potentially, because I know with Amir, it's kind of, we'll see where he's at. But I thought Ruslan kind of was like, don't sleep on this kid. He might have hit that development that we've been kind of waiting for since last year too.
I totally agree, and that's a great point. I have no idea in terms of your 4, 5, 6 between Miftakov, Hajeyev, and Quap. I think Quap will probably find himself in Greensboro, but you never know how quickly he may need to get ready. But you're absolutely right. Ruslan Hajeyev was one of the stars of the prospect showcase for me. He is looking like he's taking that next step. Last year he came over. It was his first year in North America. He's 19 years old. He's super quiet. He's trying to learn the language. And his year-over-year growth was so impressive. So you're absolutely right. Yes, there's, the first pick from last year's draft and Semyon Frolov. You've also got Yegor Velmakin, who the organization's very high on. But I think you're right. I think Ruslan Hajeyev is a rising stock, if you ask me.
Yes, 100%. Also, Jacob Vondras, too, over there with, I think he's, I forget I know he's in the OHL with some, I think it's Sudbury. I think the last time I heard about him being over there somewhere, too, but there's a lot of guys.
He's in the second tier Czech league now.
Okay.
See if anything's still there. I think the organization would still have to sign him, but I think he might be on the outside in of that picture right now. But hey, when you've got 6 formidable options, it's kind of understandable why.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah. All right, so we've talked about a lot of the guys have been kind of sent down to Chicago. A lot of guys who really impressed throughout camp. Now we're going to kind of start looking ahead a little bit. Preseason on Saturday, regular season Thursday. We got so we have a few rapid fire questions for Mr. Walt Ruff here to see if he can handle the heat and start getting through these questions. So stick around and we'll go through all that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. All right, Walt, so we kind of talked about the 5 preseason games. We talked about the more recent roster cuts. There's still 3 guys that the Hurricanes have to, we kind of have to figure out what they're going to do with, because we're right now at 15 forwards, 18 defensemen, and 3 goalies. We kind of talked about the 3 guys who are potentially on the outside looking in Smith and Legault and also Primeau, but for you, I know that the open night rosters have to be submitted by Monday because the regular season starts on Tuesday. Hurricanes don't play until Thursday. For you, like, I guess maybe if fans don't know, like, but what's the kind of like, what's the next few days looking like for the Hurricanes and trying to figure out, we have 1 preseason game left. We got to get the roster down to 23. What's kind of like the next steps? What are they kind of looking for over the next few days to finalize this roster?
Yeah, well, the big thing, Zach, is health. It's finding out who can really go next Thursday night because we've seen Jacob Slavin in a very limited role in a no-contact jersey. Like we had talked about earlier, Jaden Chatfield was gone for a week. Keandre Miller just graduated from the no-contact, so it's really deciphering, are you 100% good to go for next Thursday night at Lenovo Center? And I think that's what Rod Brindamore and staff are really looking at right now, because you do have to make a couple final decisions. So in that lead up to Saturday's preseason game in Nashville and then Monday's opening roster, you need some honest answers from these guys, and you need to make an honest evaluation of, are we going to be comfortable playing these guys on Thursday night, or are we better off taking the cautious approach and maybe letting some of these other guys take that role? So Pyotr Kochetkov is another name too, because like you had mentioned with Cayden Primeau, if Kochetkov's good to go, you obviously don't need a third goalie on the roster. So the health is the big thing for me leading up to Monday.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing that's kind of like what it puts everything in kind of like a limbo situation, because like you said, if Jalen Chatfield's not ready to go, does that mean you need that extra right hand shot of Legault possibly in up there? If maybe if Jankowski still isn't really 100% ready to go, does that open up a spot for maybe Givani Smith or someone else to come up? If Kochetkov, like you said, if Kochetkov's not ready, is that Primeau? So, yeah, I think even through Saturday, it's going to be very interesting because, yeah, you have to submit your roster, but you can still do stuff in between Monday and Thursday. It's just, what are we looking at come a week from now, which is still crazy to think that we're now finally a week away from the home opener and season opener. I mean, you got strutting Stormy hats coming out soon. You got Margaritaville coming out against the Flyers, which, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that are coming out, in terms of just all the giveaways and all the special nights are going to happen. Of course, we're talking 20th anniversary nights to commemorate the 2005-6 team, which is, I can't believe it's been 20 years already. That's the kind of the biggest surprise for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was there when they won it, and now we're 20 years in the future, and we're now celebrating it, which is crazy. But so we've talked a lot of odd eye stuff. We'll kind of get back to that a little bit. But for you, what are you kind of looking forward to for the season? I know, like, we always ask the players, and and we've asked other people as well. For I guess for a team reporter, I guess I want to kind of pick your brain now a little bit. What are you kind of looking forward to when it comes to jumping into another season covering this team?
Yeah, like Rod Brindamore always puts it, you have to run the first race before you get to the second race. I think as we sit here on, the first couple of days of October, you and I would both agree, and I think Vegas, in terms of the odds, agrees as well. This is a team probably destined for an 8th consecutive playoff berth. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, we don't have the fast forward button on life. We got to run the first race to get to April, right? And for me, especially after a year like last year, it's trying to find out the storylines, or maybe riding the wave of the storylines that come up during the season. I can't believe that it's been not even a year since Martin Necas was a Carolina Hurricane and was leading the league in scoring. Like, there's a part of me that feels like that was 10 years ago already.
Yeah.
So it's when you get going into the season, you start to find out these things, right? Like Frederik Andersen's injuries the last couple of years, and the holes that's created, and opportunities that's created. And my goodness, the mid-season trade of acquiring Mikko Rantanen last year and then moving him out 6 weeks later. So I think that's one of the best parts about this job for me. You really wake up every single day not knowing exactly what you're getting into. And that's a pretty cool thing. I love being on the edge of my seat, and I try to, in my role, keep everybody as informed and as educated as best that I can over the course of this ride. And it's really fun getting to do it all together.
Yeah, no, and I can definitely agree. I think a lot of people would agree that you do a very good job of doing that, Walt, because it's good to be like, it's hard for a lot of people to kind of, be there and do it every day. And, you're someone who's kind of in the thick of things, like I said, being the editorial content producer and team reporter. There's multiple hats. It's not just, okay, go right. No, it's like, no, there's a lot of stuff on top of that. Plus, you also got Peter there too with that nice little Portland Winterhawk to Carolina Hurricane bridge that we got going on with Seth Jarvis and all those guys too. So somehow Portland and Raleigh have a nice little highway that no one really knows about.
I think Raleigh's a little bit better though, when I'm biased.
Hey, I'm not. Hey, I'm a guy from Ohio and I love the area, so I completely agree with you there. Bias or unbiased aside, Raleigh's the best for sure. But it's interesting too when you look at this season where it's condensed in the first half and it's really condensed in the second half because you're looking at the Winter Olympics, and now we're going to see some guys from the Hurricanes go to Italy and do that. For you, what does it kind of look like for you when it's like, okay, I have all these games leading up until February? You're talking about a huge break in between, and then it's a massive. All right, here's a sprint going to like through March and April. What for you? What is like kind of like your mindset knowing, okay, there's going to be this really wide open space of days, and then it's just bam, everything all at once.
Well, maybe it's a blessing, maybe it's a curse, but I'll be honest, I haven't thought too much about that in terms of my schedule yet.
Right.
There's so much fun stuff going on in the next week, let alone the next month, that when we get to February, I'm sure I'll be super grateful for maybe a couple days off the gas. But
yeah, right.
I'm looking forward to everything in between. Like you had mentioned a little bit earlier, opening night's always special. I mean, I can't wait till next Thursday. I'm just going to try and after I eat my pregame meal, I'm going to take a lap around the building. That's kind of been my new tradition because, when you come to the rink and then all of a sudden you're leaving and it's midnight, you realize you don't see the sun a whole heck of a lot. So I'm trying to see the sun a little bit more on game days.
Right.
But no, it's always like a party atmosphere on opening night. So that's really cool, getting to see some people that I haven't gotten to see all summer. Obviously, I'm pretty grateful for the ones who I do get to see at practices at Invisalign and stuff, but some of the fans, getting to reconnect with them and hear about their summers, that's always pretty cool to me. And like you said, some of the theme nights are really cool too. Like, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about Jimmy Buffett and Margaritaville, but I love that Stormy that we have going with that group, the Stormy t-shirt that we have with the group ticket package. So, I'm entrenched in the day-to-day of some of those things right now, and I think those are really cool. When we get to February in the Olympics, I'm sure I'll be super pumped to watch because obviously that's probably the greatest stage in all of hockey. And after how cool the Four Nations was last year, how could you not be amped up about it? So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. So you mentioned some of these theme nights. Like, what theme night are you kind of like? I'm very curious to see how this one's good because then we got Star Wars night. We got a whole. In the event I'm always, excited about, of course, Mental Health Night. Big thank you for that a few years back. But like, what kind of like for you, like, what are you kind of circling? Is like, I'm curious about how this night's going to go.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm cheating a little bit right now, and I'm pulling up hurricanes.com to look up all the options because I know we have so many.
I don't blame you one, but even I forget half of them. Like, wait, we have this night going on? I'm like, I don't remember even this being on the schedule.
Exactly. They all blend together. It's a grind to get through during the summer, and then once you finally put them out, you're like, what date is that again? But no, seriously, the two that I do have circled, I mean, every year I'm a sucker for Whalers Night.
My
family is a huge fan of it. They think it's so cool how we wear the different jerseys and stuff. And I think our game entertainment team does a really good job of going all in, right? Like when you come to that game, you feel like you're going to a Hartford Whalers game. You don't feel like you're coming to a Carolina Hurricanes game. Like everything is green and blue. They go the whole 9 yards. So I'm a sucker for that, like I said. And then as you touched on a little bit earlier, the Stanley Cup team celebration night. I think that's going to be really cool. I know that a lot of guys who were on that team are going to be here that weekend. That is obviously taking place of the Hurricanes Hall of Fame night and weekend that we've done the last couple of years. So, and I think the organization's done a really good job of promoting and celebrating that. So definitely looking forward to the Stanley Cup celebration night as well. I know the Stanley Cup's going to be here. That's always cool. I remember when I got to see the Stanley Cup for the first time too. I was in Portland, and you become like a kid again. You remember why you love this game and this sport as much as you do. You're like, that's the Stanley Cup. You take your picture with it, and it's something that a lot of people are going to be able to remember for a very long time. And I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. I think the first time I ever saw it in person, because you kind of see it on the ice when you're there when the team, when Rod lifts it, does the stomp and all that stuff. I think the first time I got to see it in person was the All-Star game when it was in Raleigh in 2011, and got to take a picture with next to my dad and stuff like that. It was just like, do I touch it? Do I not touch it? Because there's that the whole thing. I'm like, it's probably the only time I'm like, yes, because you have to. It's like, when are you gonna get a chance to touch a Stanley Cup again? So yeah, I totally get it. It's kind of like because it's the greatest trophy in sports. Let's be honest. Like, I think it's also the hardest one to get. Like when you look at the NHL playoffs, like I don't think anything really touches it in terms of just intensity and all that stuff. But it's going to be fun for sure. I know we got Star Wars night, we got all these other nights coming on down the pipe too, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And I know a lot of people have been really enjoying the new interactive games they've been seeing on the screen. Of course, the guys playing cornhole and all that stuff. Like that is just. It's fun just to see those guys kind of, trash talk each other while trying to play cornhole.
It's great. It's again, I'll give a large credit to our video team and our game entertainment team. I can tell you firsthand that that QR code that you see up on the big board every single game asking for fan feedback, they read every single one of those. They take it to heart and they try and make the product better every single time you come to Lenovo Center.
Yep. No, they definitely do for sure. So, all right, well, we're kind of getting towards the end of this. I want to get some quick fire questions with you real quick, kind of, see, how fast are you on your feet, Keem, with some of these questions, but they're not too hard, nothing too crazy. But when you're looking at this team, who's your breakout player for the season for the Carolina Hurricanes?
I'm going to say Logan Stankoven because of the opportunity he's been given in training camp. I can't wait to see what his season looks like.
No, I mean, it's definitely exciting for Trey. I think it's his first year without having to be either called up or traded. So It's like, all right, just go be yourself for a whole season. We'll see what you can do from there. Yep. Surprise, under the radar player that people need to keep an eye
on. Great question. He's not under the radar, but he's still underappreciated. And in terms of his on-ice capabilities in Jordan Staal. He's the captain. He's the guy who drives this team in the locker room. When Connor McDavid comes to town, he has that defensive assignment. When Alexander Barkov comes down, he's that defensive assignment. There's a lot of guys you could go with. I still think Jacob Slavin's massively underappreciated, but I know our fans are very knowledgeable and they love this team inside and out. So it would be hard to underestimate anybody, but I just hope Jordo gets the credit he deserves.
No, 100%. And when you hear people talk about Jackson Blake, what is something that you want people to know, or like something that is like, don't sleep on this kid for his sophomore season?
He's incredibly creative. I think we saw flashes of that last year. It was obviously his first year in the NHL. I think he was a little, he still had some training wheels on. I think he's going to be more comfortable this time around. And I think we are going to see some incredibly creative moments with him with the puck this season.
No, 100%. I'm predicting for 50 points because I think he can take that next step, because we've seen him in the preseason and, just talking to him, fantastic guy to talk to, really down to earth, really chill about it. So I think he has what it takes to do that, because you're talking only 13 points to take that next step. Give him some constant line mates. I think it's a good possibility to see it happen. Now, the tough question for you, Walt, and I'm curious to see where you're going to go with this one. If you had to pick one food in the building to have for the season, what would it be?
That's a good question, and I'll preface this by saying that I obviously don't get to have the arena concessions a whole lot. I'll slip in a teaser. I'm going to try and attend a game as a fan, maybe as like a undercover assignment type thing this season. We'll see if it happens or not.
Okay.
But I know we've got a lot of good concession options here. Like if it's still here, I think Happy and Hale. I mean, I'm big on their salads. I know that's probably not a popular answer for a hockey game, but we have Shake Shack too, right? I love Shake Shack.
I think so, yeah.
You can't go wrong there. I'm probably answering this question terribly, so don't take my food advice.
Hey, it's all good. I know there's a lot more different options that are coming in this year, of course, with renovation and stuff like that. It's going to be crazy, but I would love to read if you ever did an article on a perspective, like what's it like to be a fan, but no one knows that you're a fan. So that would be some undercover stuff. That'd be a lot of fun. But this kind of relates to this. If there was one place that you could pick from your journey, Arizona, Portland, back home, maybe, what's one food option that you would love to bring to Raleigh and open up a restaurant right now in the Triangle?
That's a really great question. I loved Tex-Mex when I was in Texas. I think that's fantastic. And along similar lines, Southern Arizona Mexican food, man, that's some good stuff. And obviously, very regional for both areas, right? So I loved both of those things. And I wish that we could have that quality Mexican. Mexican I've had here is good, but I mean, you can't beat those two places.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. Yeah, because I used to be over the road and stuff like that. And yeah, when you go to Southern Arizona, you got to find the really good Mexican places for sure. Now, talking about going on the road, an underappreciated road city that maybe people don't consider, because everyone wants to talk about like the New Yorks, the LAs. What's the underappreciated road city that people don't think of?
Man, I'm probably going to botch this because this is such a good question. And it's actually funny. I just asked Nikolai Ehlers this on the Storm Report this past week. And I asked him, and I'm glad I didn't ask myself because, man, I'm answering this brutally as well.
You can give a top three if you want. I'll give you a slight out. I'll give you three if you had to.
I mean, anytime you get to go to Florida, any time of year, that's pretty great, right? Like, you're getting sunshine, even if it's in December. Yeah. I enjoy Nashville. That's a cool place too. And if I had to give you one, I mean, kind of doesn't count because I lived there, but Dallas is always cool to me too. So, yeah, good question. I botched that one too.
I kind of thought about it. I'm like I know you asked Ehlers, should I ask Walt? Because I love to get from a writer's perspective. You ask the guys, and it's different for them. But like, what's the writer aspect of it too? Because you're on the road too. Maybe your schedule's a little bit different compared to those guys. But what are some underappreciated road cities or road food that maybe you would never think about trying? But me,
it's the press box. That's what it is. Zach. Who's got a good press box? Like
who's got a good press box? Sorry, give me the good press box.
Vegas has a good press box. They got comfy chairs. They got a good level, a height for your computer. You can put your backpack in like a cubby hole behind you. Whereas you go to Seattle and you're sitting in like a folding chair and your knees ringing into the counter in front of you. Vegas has got a good one.
You would think for Seattle, the newer team, maybe they've done something a little bit different. But I mean, I know there's some arenas where you're having to walk across you have to walk over the ice just to get to like the broadcast booth, and I'm like, yeah, no, that you rig it up, just kind of walk over with the tether. I'm good with that. But that's wild though. You would think for Seattle with the newer arena, maybe it'd be a little bit better, but it is.
Everybody's got to cut corner somewhere.
I guess so. But last question for you, Walt. What is one thing you want to say to the fans before the start of the season? Because everyone's really excited for it. But for you, what would you say to the Caniacs going into this season?
That's a good one. And I got a two-part answer for you. First, enjoy the ride. As we talked about earlier, we never know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis. We didn't know we were trading Martin Necas last year. We didn't know we were acquiring Mikko Rantanen last year. We didn't know we were trading Mikko Rantanen last year. We didn't know we were getting Logan Stankoven. We weren't sure Alexander Nikishin was coming over. So just enjoy the ride. This is the best reality television in the world because you really know it's never going to happen. And secondly, I would say thank you. I'm very grateful to be able to do this job on an everyday basis. I appreciate everyone who makes it as enjoyable as it is. In my heart of hearts, all I want to do is make sure everybody is as informed and as educated on the team as possible. I know that when I was a fan growing up, I looked up to a lot of these people to get my information, and I'm so blessed to be here now. And I thank every single one who follows, whether it's on social or goes to hurricanes.com. It means the world to me, means the world to Peter, means the world to the organization. So thank you to everybody. And hopefully I can continue to do a good job of that this year.
Yeah, no. And Always do, Walt, and we appreciate you for what you do, and even for Peter, what he does, and of course the video and the photography team, and just everyone else behind the scenes too. It's a big operation to have. It's not just 20 something guys on a roster. It's everyone that's around it too. But we do appreciate what you guys do. And as we get out of here, Walt, I know you kind of mentioned the website, but where can people find you, and of course your work and Peter's work and just everything going on with the Carolina Hurricanes?
I'll always send everyone to hurricanes.com or nhl.com/hurricanes. That's the way to go. I know that some people like to use social, some people don't, but at the end of the day, hurricanes.com is always going to be there for you.
Yep, no, 100%. Well, like I said, Walt, thank you for taking so much time for me to talk to me today. I know we ran a lot longer than we thought, but you know what? A lot of great stuff. I think a lot of people will love this because it's always a good time having you on talking about the Carolina Hurricanes. So I just want to say thank you so much for being able to do this on it's a busy week for you and all that stuff on a Wednesday to do this. But thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Of course. Thank you very much, Zach, for having me. I'm so grateful that the schedule worked out, that we got to record this at a time where practice wasn't going on.
Yeah.
Certainly no shortage of things to talk about. And
Yeah.
I hope everybody's just as excited as I am for next Thursday at Lenovo Center.
Yeah, no, I know I'm excited, and a lot of people are excited. We're done with the speculations. I actually talk about real games that matter. But until then, guys, this will be the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen. Second listen, go check out the 2025 AHL preseason previews over at Locked On AHL. It's a 6-episode series bringing you the best local insight to make you the most informed NHL fan heading into the season. Find Locked On AHL on YouTube wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, One True Zach on X. Podcast is @LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. We're going to click on the link trees in my bios. You can find all of my written content at thehockeywriters.com. I've been doing a lot of stuff recently with all the roster movements and kind of doing some previews and stuff like that. Make sure to go check it out. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube for Locked On Hurricanes. We're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen. Leave a 5-star rating and review. If you do, might just read on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications, don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up so let me know if the show as well. Share with other Keeniacs to become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes with special guest Walt Ruff. Enjoy your Thursday. We are now a week away from the start of the regular season where games are going to matter, and get ready for that long marathon run to the playoffs. Until then, as always, let's go Canes.